for the next half an hour, and we're going to learn about breaking codes, shattering the glass ceiling in AI leadership. My dear friends, would you join me in welcoming to the stage our VIP guests, Christina Stathopoulos, Mariana Hernandez, Bruna de Guimaraes joining us virtually, and of course, Paula Derrenger joining us IRL. Thank you so much. Okay, we are just going to, before I find out how badly I've mispronounced everyone's name, we're just going to see, are we going to be welcoming Bruna to the our virtual event, right? Okay, excuse me. Just change it. Yes, we do indeed. Okay, fabulous. I just need to swap over here, again, using my incredible technology skills, to this other document here. Right. Okay. So thank you all so much for being here. I am, very honored to be the token man on the stage. I think, this conversation is about the incredible, work that you're all doing and the reasons that you're doing it, the importance of your mission. Now, one of the great truisms that I see at every single conference, and I've seen this when I worked at enterprise companies, I see this at events, I see the best minds in the world talking about this, is a lack of diversity is fatal. Because if you don't have the 360 viewpoint of any particular issue or problem, you're just going to step on some really embarrassing rakes. It can be a matter of national security. It can be a matter of company sustainability. If you don't operationalize diversity, getting the best viewpoints from the best of society, you're really missing a trick. It's the greatest unlock for any business in any sector. I'm a firm believer in this. So there's been some really interesting reports recently. There's been the Google Diversity Report. There's been reports from Forbes, from McKinsey, really kind of saying what a lot of people know from personal experience, is that there's no reason for you to look around a boardroom and for everyone to look like you, because that's just a recipe for disaster. You see it again and again. Before we dive into things, I wonder, could we open things up by just examining what's your assessment of the current status of women in leadership across different sectors, and which sectors are smashing it, which who's crushing it out there in terms of like bringing that good diversity in, and which sectors are falling behind. So time to name and shame. Okay, and if there's anything else that you want to say by way of an introduction, you're very welcome. Now's a good time if you want to expand at all about what I've said in your stellar introductions. I'm gonna hold this microphone towards you. Who wants to jump in?
Thank you. So, well, I believe that we all understand the big numbers, but if you compare, for instance, that we have approximately 20% of women in the technology sector, and if you go to education, communication, marketing, and the public sector, you can find numbers between 45 and 50%. So, of course, we know there's a gap in the technology sector, but I think that the most interesting thoughts that we can share here is why is this happening and what is our responsibility, to change this. So I would like to open that conversation because if we go and see what is happening in the education for girls, for instance, and I work with Technovation, and we were in a talk yesterday, I believe, yesterday. So we saw like how little girls are so scared of mathematics. There's like twice the number of girls with anxiety about mathematics versus boys. And this is happening in a very early years. So I believe that that is one of the things we should be understanding, what is happening in the early education years, and we should have influence there because we have to understand how we can empower girls to feel more safe and and strong when facing STEM topics.
Yeah, I think the topic on education, I was talking about it previously with Tasha from our HR team. I think it's an important one. We were talking about her daughter and also my sister. She's 17. And I have noticed a big difference in her education, and also she's noticed a difference in her daughter's education and my generation. where right now they are being taught to code at school. So they're being given the opportunity from a very early stage, especially when they're being educated. So I think education is an important factor. Talking about the differences in industries, I can only talk to my experience. When I was at Procter & Gamble and Dwella, and also when I was working at the communications agency, I had female bosses. And the whole team was mostly made up of women, so it was more female heavy in a way. Now, in my day-to-day, I don't have that many female references. So actually, Bruna is my mentor. We got connected through the Intel Ignite program. We participated in batch 7 of their startup program. We were selected out of 300 startups to be one of the 12. And luckily, Bruna was part of our mentor team. And so we brought her on to Ultralytics as an advisor. So really having her being part of that conversation is something that I'm very thankful for. And then lastly, just a really fun fact that I figured the other day, I was very curious to know, out of all the, I think, 1,000 companies that I've talked to or more in the last year, I had only spoken to 4 companies that had women in them as part of the conversation to sell an Ultralytics enterprise license. So that to me was a very, very striking figure.
To follow up of what you said earlier about how you had many female managers, I can say that I've never had a female manager in my entire career. And even I was at Google with Mariana. We had some overlap time both in the Google Madrid office. But even as we can see in this conference, tech remains a very male-dominated field, and it's something that needs to change. And I was looking at some stats before the panel, looking at like a broader view, and I saw that for 2023, looking at CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, what % of the CEOs do you think were females? So raise your hand if you think they were 50%. 50% females. 40%? 30%? 25? 20? I see more hands. What about 10? The answer is 10. 2023 had 10% females, and this was a record high. So it's actually good news because we're improving. But if you look at the number as it is, I think it's quite low. We have a lot of work to do when it comes to just women in leadership. And I know this is a very gender discussion, but I would add as well that you need to look even deeper. You need to look into very specific groups. So if we consider, for example, women of color, the numbers get much, much worse. So there's a lot of work we need to do when it comes to diversity across leadership in general, but especially in tech.
100%. I don't know. Can you hear me?
Perfectly, yes. Hello.
Great. Hi. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I completely agree with everything that they said. I have the same example as Christina. I never had anyone, any boss or mentor. There were women. It was just men. I had the lucky opportunity to have very incredible mentors that also pushed me and really wanted me as well to break those boundaries and break those barriers. But that's actually the goal. And I think the biggest thing that we also underestimate is role models. Role models for kids, for C-level startups, for individual contributors. This makes a really big difference. Again, to the point of Christina, also for other minorities, right? So when women of color, Latinas, I mean, LGBTQ plus, having examples of that in companies allows you as well to have more of an energy. It gives you the power. It makes you feel like you can as well. And I think this is what we need to include more and more and talk about it and bring more in the day-to-day of companies to actually be this role model for them, for young professionals out there.
Word, indeed. It's an old truism. You can't see what you can't be what you can't see. It's like you need that kind of inspiration, those role models, those mentors, like you were saying. I wonder, Christina, you mentioned something interesting there. Things are going in the right direction. Obviously, we're starting from a, horrendously low bar. Do you think things like company culture and these kind of, policies and, putting things into an operational structure, is that helping? Open question for everyone. Is that a good thing? Okay, I'm seeing
I see Mariana.
Okay, Mariana, you hop in. Well volunteered.
I don't think there's only one answer for that, because I don't see like a common trend in company policies. Of course, when we talk about big tech, for instance, Google or the like, there's an awareness about this problem, and then there are some measures and and rules and norms, implicit and explicit things that are happening that help women leadership. But I would say that also regulation is very important in terms of government. And I don't know here in this audience if you know about the new law that we have to have more women in consejos de administración, like board members. Do you know the number is 40%? So now there's a law in Spain in which the companies that are public in the business, they need to have 40% of women in the board of directors. So I believe that regulation is very important, because otherwise it's not about the goodwill of leaders or the goodwill of people leading companies. It should be part of a common conversation.
Strong agree. Any more comments there, Paula?
Yeah. So I think regulation is important to achieve that gender equity. But I do think that there's an equity that we need to achieve in terms of thought. So not only getting to that number and saying, okay, we've got X% amount of women, but actually women that are in the room and have a voice and actually drive the product forward, drive the strategy forward, drive growth for a company, drive HR, recruitment. So actually have an impact in what's being done in a startup or a larger organization and helping it move forward. So I think it's about equity in gender, but also equity in thought.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
And I have to say as well, when it comes to flexible work, right? I mean, we talk about, this is in general, not only for female, but with the post-pandemic, I mean, there's so much more hybrid models that have opened up. Like, our eyes have opened up towards this possibility. And for people with, like, for male, females, for anyone in the professional sphere, you have now the flexibility. I think this is also part of being a good leader, adapting your model, adapting your culture as well to fit your team, to make sure that you enable them for success, that they are able to do the job the best way possible. And I think being stuck into an office or being stuck into your cubicle from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., it's not anymore the norm. And this has been, I think, in my opinion, a really good step forward that at least the pandemic has brought us. We always have the goods and the bads, but how companies adapt their culture as well to make sure that they can bring this diversity inside of their day-to-day.
Oh yeah, I was going to add about the pandemic. One of the good things that she was mentioning is more acceptance of hybrid or remote work. And this, of course, has benefited everybody, everyone that has kids at home or whatever family obligations you have. But in the end, it does end up typically benefiting women more, because women end up having, in general, more child rearing responsibilities or taking care of older family members. So women have seen a lot of benefits from this, and it's opened the door for them to be able to more easily move into leadership. But I will add that I'm a little bit worried, because we're seeing that trend reversing. We're seeing a lot of companies announcing return to offices, even return to office 5 days a week. And that could unfortunately reverse that trend that we saw that opened the door for many women to go into leadership. And then one thing I did want to add, because we were talking about regulation and everything before, all of this is very important, regulation, culture, changes. But I don't think that will be enough. I think in the end, what it depends on as well are the people and the company actually believing in what they're doing. Because this is not a matter of putting a check on a DEI or ESG metric in the company, but diversity has shown time and time again in studies that it profits the company, that the profits will go up. So if it comes to the bottom line, it comes to money, diversity is going to benefit the company.
Yeah, and I really like that what you mentioned, Christina, because it happens, the change happens within us. Like, we can do something about it. We shouldn't put the finger into putting the responsibility on something else. Of course, that also needs to happen, and it's also a step. But if we are little by little 1% better into our own day-to-day organization, then at some point, I believe that we will reach as well the top.
Strong agree there. I mean, if we let the market decide, it might decide just to do the same old, so and so forever. If we wait for the government to do everything, it may take a very long time, because government's very important. They can really move the corporate sector, but the speed that we require, particularly to raise the standard in companies, as you say, it's a matter of profit, it's a matter of sustainability, and just doing the right thing. It's kind of crazy that we're not already there, but here we are. We have a deficit to catch up on. Now, we heard, I think you mentioned the far from ideal world of, oh no, it was yourself, Christina, that the world of going into for a cubicle for like 8 hours a day. And it's just, that's not an ideal environment to encourage women to get into leadership and to redress the balance that we need to happen. What does the ideal world look like? I mean, what's an environment that's supportive of promoting women to leadership, making sure the board has got diversity and equity in there, and we're kind of really optimized to perform how we need to in 2024 and beyond? What's like a good scenario? What kind of things would make that change within companies?
It's not that we want to be in disorder all the time, so we can change, because but I was thinking that of course the fact that if you have diverse teams, the company will be more profitable, more productive, more innovative. We know that. But I also have a challenge for all women here, because I believe that we have a little, well, maybe not a little bit, but a lot of responsibility also in this matter. And I'm going to tell you very briefly my experience in Latinas in Tech, and also as a facilitator of I Am Remarkable program, which is a program that was created at Google, but now it's a global NGO. And I've been running a lot of workshops about I Am Remarkable. And basically it's to show women how to, how to communicate on an assertive way their achievements and their successes. And in every workshop that I have facilitated, there's this fear and there's this doubt about how to do this. And many women, they feel ashamed, or they don't feel that achievements should be communicated. They feel that achievements are there, and so I don't need to communicate, I don't need to talk about those things. So I believe there is something about us that we also need to change, to be able to be role models, to be able to be more assertive when communicating our challenges, our achievements, even how to ask for a pay raise. It's a big challenge for many women. So I believe that there's something inside us that we need also to check. And if you don't know about I Am Remarkable, you can check the website, because it's a very useful tool to understand the way in which we can be the change we want to see in the world. We have to start with ourselves, I believe. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, who wants to jump in?
No, I would just add that I was also a I Am Remarkable facilitator. I love that workshop. But we're talking about, as women, we need to believe in ourselves. And I know as well, we have a lot of attendees that are male today, so I don't want to leave you out of the conversation. Of course, males form a part of this. I've had a lot of fantastic male managers, male mentors. So males are just as much a part of this journey. And as a male, there's a lot that you can do. I mean, you can make sure that women's voices get heard. You can make sure of pay transparency, that there's not a discrepancy between men and women doing the same job, supporting your female colleagues. But don't think just because this is a women's discussion that all of the males are out of it. You are just as important.
Yeah, I wanted to do a little shout out to Glenn. I think he's been also key, and I've told him several times in my growth at Ultralytics, because he's given me that space to grow, to explore, to test things out and test my limits, take risks, challenges. So I think, as you're saying, I think having someone that vouches for you and sponsors you, I think, is super important, regardless of whether you're a man or a woman. I think having role models, I think it's very important. If I look around me, as I said before, I don't have a lot of female references in my day-to-day. I have personal ones. I've got my mom. I've got my aunt as well. She's one of the few female partners at Deloitte here in Spain. And I think they've really taught me to, to believe in myself and to be more assertive, as you were saying. So I think having more role models is something that is very important, and it's a little bit of a domino effect. The more we see, the more women will, see themselves in a leadership position, and the more companies will want to hire women to lead their teams.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything these women have said. And honestly speaking, transparency within the workplace, right? So this will allow as well that then there is a equality when it comes to promotions, when it comes to equitable pay, when it comes to time off, all of those things. I think if you bring transparency to the table, it will make a big difference to bring this equality to the company.
Absolutely, and a great shout to men who are on the right side of this. There's that old truism: if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So do be part of the solution. Look out for mansplaining. Now, mansplaining is, of course, when a man takes a lot of space explaining something. I just thought I'd better explain that for you there. You're welcome. Let's dive back in to the subject at hand. Now, you have spoken about these scenarios, where we'd like to get to, how we all need to be part of this journey, this solution, the importance of mentorship, inspiration, that rising tide lifting all the boats. But what are some specific strategies that have helped you navigate situations that have been less than ideal? Is there anything, for our friends joining us on demand, streaming in live, any specific strategies helped you personally thrive in environments which are sadly a bit outdated and a bit male dominated for now?
I would start, we've talked a lot about mentorship and having sponsors at work. So that always helps. When you don't, you can become like very isolated, very alone, especially if you're a female in a very male-dominated field. And then one other thing that I think could work for companies, because you're talking about strategies that we can do, we haven't mentioned anything about psychological safety. So opening a door to some sort of psychological safety within a company where you know that you can go talk, whether it's a complaint or an idea, but a place that you feel safe and don't have risk of retaliation. Of course, this should be everywhere. I mean, that should be throughout the whole company. Sometimes it doesn't work that way, and it needs to start through some program or system. But you also do need psychological safety without the fear of retaliation.
Yeah, fantastic.
I think there are three things, in my opinion, that combine all of this, that are parts of the strategy. One is for yourself, right? What are you doing? What your peers are doing, what the company is doing. We spoke about what the company is doing: transparency, flexible work environment. You have your peers. We spoke about our male peers also helping and supporting that you're part of the solution, and having those allies, having those mentors, and yourself, which was already mentioned as well for Mariana. I think if you have those 3 points, and especially yourself, you as a woman, if you don't have a seat at the table, make a seat at a table. There's a book I love, and I love to give to everyone that goes through the mentorship program with me, is Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. We're taught as girls to be nice, and we are not supposed to be nice. We're supposed to be kind, and kind is different than nice. And I think we also need to be and get our space, and not be afraid of speaking up. Talking about my daughter, right? We just read a book, one of my favorite books for her. It's called Dear Girl. And the first page of the book, it says, "Dear girl, raise your hand. You have smart things to say." So not forgetting about this, like just speak up. And the work comes from within and from those from those role models that are coming into your day-to-day that will inspire you to actually speak up and represent who you are.
Can I just add one, because she just mentioned a book. If you know me, I love books. I want to add on Invisible Women. I don't know if you all have read it. Yeah, okay. Invisible Women is a book that I recommend in a lot of my classes. I'm a data person, so I talk about a lot of data books. And there's one particular book called Invisible Women, which was written talking about how the world was designed with the male as default. I think a lot of us are familiar with the case of the seatbelts in cars, that they were tested for accidents using dummies in the form of a male body, but female bodies are designed differently. And they didn't change that and start doing the double tests until later on. But it goes much further than just testing for accidents. And the book covers all of the different industries. I mean, healthcare, transportation, and so on. But I recommend this to women and men in my classes, because I think it opens all of our eyes to how much change we need to make, and particularly us as data people. We can relate with that, I think.
Absolutely. Oh yes.
Yeah, but specific things we can do, or the things that I'm doing, and I love that book. And yes, there are so many examples about how the world has been designed with a male point of view at some point, and this is changing. But the first thing I have done is to be an active mentor. So I have lean in and and be a mentor to my reports when I was in Google, or to other people that wanted to have me as a mentor. I am also talking to girls in early education stages to show them that you can be a happy, fulfilled woman working in technology, that is not that difficult, that it's very fun, that you can have a wonderful life. So they are very excited when I go there and I tell these girls my story. And another thing that I have done is to be very proactive, bringing male allies. So I've been like, inviting people, males in my environment, to come and talk to us, and what do you think, and what is your point of view, and do you want to be a mentor of someone here? And even in Latinas in Tech, that we are only women, we have a lot of men that are mentoring and helping us to understand how to move forward. So I would say that those three things are very important for me, but always being proactive and going that step beyond. Don't wait for things to happen for you, but just go and do something, and ask for help. That's very important. So I would say that is my thought about this. Okay.
Yeah, I guess I agree with everything that you've said. Just to add to that, I guess challenging yourself to do things, and pushing yourself to be in uncomfortable positions. And I can think of many uncomfortable positions that I've had this year, one of them being this one. So I've never done a panel discussion or a talk. So you need to push yourself. So always push yourself. And I think, yeah, and so I think that's mostly the key learning that I've had in the last 2 years at Ultralytics, which are my first ones in tech.
Outstanding. The first, but not the last, Paula. Wow, that's awesome. I'd just like to give some disclosure here. Two of my best bosses in my entire career, which is a few decades in tech, were women. One here, Simonetta Lully in Madrid, absolutely badass. No ego, full, candid feedback, just brilliant. Nothing's personal. This is about getting the best possible work out of your colleagues. And her boss was Kaisa Soininen in Finland, who was completely badass. They were just brilliant. Two of the best people I've ever worked with. Now we have the cube of power. Hannah's got the cube of power. She's ready to pass it to your face if you would like to ask a question to our quartet of awesome women here. Do we have any questions? I have more questions, but I think your questions might be more novel. We have a question. Okay, Hannah is floating across the floor very elegantly there. The cube is traveling up to the top of the room. And I believe, look at this, yes, this is Olympic. Oh, it's being thrown across to our community desk. Thank you, sir.
So this question is actually from me, not from the community, because as a follow-up on what Christina mentioned about what men can do to be more welcoming for women in technology. My partner is a woman in STEM, and I'm always backing her. But one of the things I've learned, and I wanted to ask if the panel could share, sometimes it's best to know what not to do. And wanted to get everyone's opinion on that.
I'm processing that. That's a good question. It's a really good question.
I would say don't be patronizing or condescendent. Also, I believe that pushing is not the best way, but inviting and understanding, and also opening your mind about how a female can perceive the same problem in a different way, and that is very enriching.
Maybe I would add as well, I think, and you'll probably understand this, don't interrupt too much. Yes. There are a lot of, again, going back to data and studies, there's a lot of studies about how much more women get interrupted in like meetings versus men. We get talked over, we get interrupted, and it kind of just gets pushed under the rug. But if it happens a lot, it really starts to affect you. This is something you really have to consciously like focus on to really notice it, but it happens.
Yeah, for me, it's a very simple thing. It's just don't do to women what you wouldn't like to be done to yourself, right? The famous saying. So just try to portray it to you and think about, yeah, would I like this to be done to me? And in the end, I think it's a very simple rule.
Fantastic. Okay, absolutely brilliant. I think we might be close. Okay, we're getting the times out signal there from Hannah. Thank you very much. My dear friends, that was wonderful. So there you go. You're all part of the solution now. You're all part of the Ultralytics community. Let's see what we can do together to redress this balance that really, really should have been redressed a very long time ago. So thank you all for everything you're doing. Thank you for being here on the stage and joining us virtually. My dear friends, give a huge round of applause to Christina, Mariana, Bruna, and Paula. Thank you.